All right, Charlie.
One office
This
district.
brings the December 20th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order, gentlemen.
Oh, right. True.
We have some adjournments. Number 3007. Can I get a
I move we adjourn that.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have another 3015, Nakmani.
I move we adjourn that. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like to go out of order a little bit and call case number 3026, Akiva Goldsman. Come on.
Okay, there was InterScience handled the application file that they asked me to be here if necessary. They requested
Your
affidavit, a posting affidavit, a mailing was submitted. I submitted them earlier today, so you have jurisdiction. And we requested an adjournment to the February meeting to give the board of the town trustees and the DEC a chance to make their comments known. They've both received applications also, and I think the letter that InterScience sent you indicates that the DEC application is complete and the trustees are reviewing it. So,
Is there anybody in the room that has anything to add to 3026? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn it. I'll second.
That is to the February meeting?
To the February meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. Okay, pending decisions. Number 3005, Meadow Club. Is there
This
a
is
motion?
before you because, if you recall, after you made your decision last month, the applicant submitted additional drawings, and to make sure those drawings were incorporated into the record, Chick prepared an amended decision for you, and that is available in your files.
just so you know, the only reason we did that was to make sure that the survey plans that Raina's office prepared matched the revised drawings that we did. That's the only reason. There's no change in project.
Move we accept the decision as amended. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4 to 0.
4? 5.
4.
4. Okay.
4 to 0.
You have a form for me?
Well, you already have a form. I mean, maybe you already signed a form that's in the
For that one, I
file.
did, yeah.
If the other party has a new case, you'll need a new one. Number 3013, we have a decision on the Strunk property.
I move we accept the decision as written. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye.
Aye.
5, yeah. I said
5-0.
5-0.
3016, Amodea.
I move we accept the decision as written. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Oh, here you go. Okay.
Is there a copy of the Chick's resolution on
Bathing Corp? Or no?
Meadow Club?
Meadow Club.
I may have that.
Here you go, Gary.
Here, this is one. You got it?
Case number 3017, Yellum trustee for Ehrlich.
I move we accept the decision as written. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
4-0. 3019, Rickless Trust.
I move we accept the decision as written. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye.
4-0.
Is this you?
Number 3020, Raymond.
I move we accept the decision as written. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. 4-0.
Number 3021, Southampton Bathing Corp.
You have to get somebody else to move that.
Oh,
I move that we accept this decision as written.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0?
3-0.
Two of us abstain.
Well, you're recused, so it's not an abstention, is that correct?
That's right, you recused yourself.
Right.
So it's a 3-0. Number 2975, Willow Lane Holdings, Wyandanch.
I move we accept the decision as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye, 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Number 3023, 472 First Neck Lane.
I move we accept the decision as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
5-0.
Thanks for your patience on this.
Well, that cleans up the agenda. Let's go home.
Okay. Number 3010 on pending cases, McDonald USA. No burger people? Okay.
We deserve a break today.
So is there a motion to adjourn
I move we adjourn it.
for all purposes? Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. That's 5-0, I reckon.
Yeah.
Number 3014, Squabbles. Will the applicant,
I don't have much to say.
could you announce yourself, sir?
John Bennett for the applicant and Steve Aruna from Aries Design.
Thank you.
At the last meeting, we submitted a letter in response to Ms. Riley's correspondence. In addition, prior to the November meeting, we filed a revised EAF, form site plan and landscape plans to address all of the Chick's comments. We modified the proposed front porch on the residence. Previously, the porch was proposed along the entire length of the northerly elevation, and it's been reduced. And as was pointed out at the last meeting, Mr. Douglas, the second-story porch is now only accessible from the master bedroom suite rather than from both the office and the master bedroom suite. So it's a minimal. It's a really de minimis variance as it relates to the zoning variances. It's important to note that this road really doesn't squabble. Yes, it does come down here, but it doesn't function. It's not a through road. It's by the time you get to this property, it functions solely as a driveway because no one else is driving through it. Doesn't continue on. There's a house here, and this is the very. When you're on it, it seems like it's part of the driveway. It is technically part of Squabble Lane, but no one's driving through it. So the whole reason that you have front yard setbacks is less of a problem with this zoning application. So it's not a typical road. There's not going to be visible to anyone from the public. These are private roads, but even over and above that, this is the end or spur of Squabble. So I don't see any harm whatsoever to anyone. There's some complaints. I think it's probably fair to say, I'm just going to come right out and say it because Ms. Riley's client said it in the letter that she drafted and put into the file herself. These folks don't like one another. She said he's not a pleasant guy. I don't know whether, that shouldn't count one way or the other, but I think it's as much as anything a sort of personal animus. That doesn't equate to any sort of harm, no. And then I think the only other question that Ms. Riley had, she was concerned that we were going to remove some native species, and Steve has testified to great extent that we weren't going to do that, and I don't think Chick had any additional comments, I could be wrong, to the planting plan, nor did we see any additional comments from Ms. Riley's office, having called the building department late this afternoon. So, and that may be her now. But I don't have anything to add unless I could answer any questions for the board.
Anything from the board or the attorney?
Actually, the board has in its file a memo from Chick, which I gave a copy to the applicant and their representatives, that just has a few comments. Maybe they can review that and address that. John, can you just explain, so Squabble Lane is a private road and there is no cul-de-sac turnaround. And on the other hand, on the northeasterly part of your property, there is a right-of-way?
On the northeasterly part of the property,
Right-of-way in a parking area?
there's a right-of-way and a parking area. that certain people, it's tough because one of the reasons my client wanted to put a gate here, and may come back and ask for that, is that there is an easement allowing certain people, not everyone in this private area, but certain people to park their cars there and to...
What do you mean certain people, though? Is it
Not everybody.
every lot owner or
No,
just certain lot owners?
No, as a matter of fact, interestingly enough, if you go down there, he has posted a sign in front of that right-of-way saying that unless you have the express right-of-way pursuant to a document file and he puts the library and page number right on it, and it's not everybody on Squabble. Unless you have that right-of-way, right in your deed, you can't park here. So there's a limited number of people that park there to go to the beach.
Anything to do with personal animus?
What happened over here was he was taking up, there was a massive brick patio around the pool, and he was taking it up one day, and Ms. Riley's client called the building inspector, and the building inspector went down there and said that he's merely taking up he's merely taking up bricks patio around the pool. No need for a building permit for that. As a matter of fact, that's part of the... I think he jumped the gun in terms of the mitigation we were offering, taking up some of the non-pervious space. But I think what happened was he was asked to stop. It was a loud thing. He was asked to stop, and he then called the building department and asked whether or not he was in his rights because it was within the time periods that you can work.
Construct or...
And so he had stopped for a little while, and then he started up again because he wasn't in violation of the noise ordinance. And I think perhaps, is Ms. Riley here? Maybe I don't want to put Ms. Riley's. It was pretty clear from the letter that Ms. Riley's client had wished that he had stopped doing that.
Right, okay.
So that's the animus.
Okay.
But,
John, the relief you're asking is, the only zoning relief is to the porch, which
Yes,
was
that's all.
reduced from the 726 that you originally asked, right?
Yes, but because Ms. Riley's client was concerned about people looking over to the house, which on the aerial, which I have, let me get to the aerial. It's hard to see a view shed, but where do we have it?
We have one here.
Oh, here, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I should have had that available. Ms. Riley's client is over here. This is Zero Squabble. Most of the view shed is looking this way. This is probably 300 feet. We did reduce the porch substantially, but it didn't change the closest point of the porch to the street. So even though we reduced the porch by 20 feet, I believe, right here, took that off, this was where I'm indicating with the pen is where it was the closest, still, even with the reduction, this is still the closest part to the street.
But
So
you
the relief
reduced
remains the
You
same.
reduced the line of sight to some
Yes, we
degree.
reduced the line of sight significantly. I think if you look at the orientation, it's to the northwest, away from this house, which is to the northeast. And
John,
if you look at the orientation of the house, and what happens here is, this is, yes, technically it's a street, but if you go down there, you'll see that this is really functioning, after this point, after the point where these limited number of cars come down and park on this easement, even though, yes, this is part of Squabble Lane, it's really functioning as one person's driveway. No one else is using this for access. It's not as if it was a through street.
So that's the only zoning relief you're
That's
asking?
the only zoning
To
relief.
reduce from what was originally noticed as 726 square feet.
Yes. That's the only...
The other relief you're asking for is all wetland relief?
Well, yeah.
All the improvements are on the street is between, or the driveway, whatever you want to call it, is between all these improvements and the wetlands for the most part?
Yes. So we have a revegetation we have a significant revegetation plan, which, again, it's, the thrust of Ms. Riley's comments was that she was concerned about the amount of work that was going to go on down there, and it's all work to put in native species. We're not going into the wetlands themselves.
And it's very similar in nature what her client did on their property. When they removal and revegetation.
Yeah, I think we submitted a copy of their landscape plan. So,
Could you address it this time? Did you have enough time to
The
review
group area question?
what Chick raised?
Yes, the only area we would look to add root barrier would be along this easterly portion here where we wouldn't want to negatively impact the efforts we're making with the revegetation. Also, where we end here on the west side.
let me just, so that you wouldn't have invasive species encroaching into the replanting
Right,
area?
we want it,
Okay.
yes, from the neighborly property. So we wouldn't want it negatively impact the efforts we're doing there. And then here, possibly add on our own property, some root barrier where we end the revegetation effort here on the west side.
Is that shown on the plans?
It's not at this time.
But we could have it before the work
I'm just
session.
thinking that,
It
I
should
think
be
that's
part of
where
the plan.
Chick's
Sure, yeah.
request is coming from.
But unless there are questions, I don't have anything to add unless there's additional information that the board would have. With the risk of being presumptuous, I'm going to ask you to close it, and we could provide plans, additional plans that show that unequivocally, that root barrier.
Is there any input from the room or from the board?
Motion to close.
You want to close for decision?
Move we close this application for decision.
I'll second.
Subject to written submission
Subject to written
submission.
submissions
by the work session.
by the work session. There's a second, all in favor?
Well, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
3012 Danielson's, 30 Sanford Place. Is there anybody here for this case? Can I get a motion to adjourn for all purposes?
Move we adjourn this case for all purposes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Right.
71 Teacups, 2959. Remember, Teacups was the man who, the landscape guy.
This was kept open for, the board had asked a couple questions, including revision of the plans. A letter was submitted December 4th before your work session, which we reviewed. It gave information about the contractor as well as a revised plan as requested by Chick. And Chick has provided you with a proposed decision. If you recall, this is based on a prior decision by this board where they were to restore or maintain certain areas natural, and that was violated. So this is remedying a violation.
So the remedy is adequate. We can entertain a motion to accept or deny this.
Well, you need to close the hearing.
I will close the hearing. We need a
move we
motion to close the hearing.
Close for decision.
And
A
if-
second to close the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor of closing this hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, is there a motion to accept the decision
I
as
move we accept the decision
with
as
additions? Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. 3018 Gleason.
For the applicant Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. This was a holdover case from your last meeting, and at that meeting you asked us to come back with some additional information having to do with various gross floor area calculations to show some additional details on the plans, including the trellis to the south of the house and the chimney on the north side, and also to show parking, off-street parking in a conforming location. You also asked us to provide drawings floor plans and elevations for the proposed new garage, all of which we submitted with a letter dated December 11th, which you should have had in time for the work session. To be sure that you, in fact, had that. I have a copy of it here if it's necessary.
Can you put that on the table so we
Sure.
can see it? And the new plan?
Actually, the plan was further amended. That's why I didn't want to put this particular plan out by a letter dated yesterday. We further amended the site plan to take into account some concerns that I understand the board had about the proximity of the swimming pool to the existing house and the proposed garage. So that was revised. We actually increased the setbacks of the pool from the house and the garage so that the pool would now be set back 6.8 feet from the house and 6.0 feet from the garage. The question may have come up as to whether or not there is any building code setback that has to do with separations between a swimming pool and a structure or building. And I had occasion to talk with Steve Lemansky, who you probably know is a civil engineer, was a former member of the planning board, and he advised me that there are no setbacks, no building code setbacks of a swimming pool from a building as opposed to a setback between buildings. As you know, there's a minimum 5-foot separation for them. So I submitted an affidavit, which is in the package that I filed yesterday, from me stating my discussion with Lemansky, who actually has said he has constructed some swimming pools directly adjacent to a building. So there's no building code concern with that whatsoever. So that includes my letter of yesterday. As a result of that, by the way, I'll say the swimming pool was reduced in size from 385 square feet to 342 square feet. You may also note that on the revised plans, the shape of the garage, remember, it was shaped like a trapezoid. It's now a rectangle. And as a result of that, we actually increased the setback from the street by 9/10 of a foot. In other words, we reduced the variance request by 9/10 of a foot. Just to point out also with respect to the swimming pool, if you look at the site plan, which is here, you can see that actually about 40% of it actually is in a conforming location in terms of the setback, so not the entire pool violates the setback. And again, it's important to note that the pool is set back more than 18 feet further from the street than the house is. Now, if you had any questions about whether the pool is visible, we submitted at the first hearing an aerial photograph that shows the screening, but I have some additional information which I'll offer up, which was prepared by the architects.
Is this
Which
the
show-
aerial you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the aerial that was originally.
Utility property?
But this is better. This is even better than that, because what it shows is it shows photographs from both streets, and it also shows the site plan with the detailing of existing hedges. There's approximately an 8-foot-high hedge along Cooper Street. There's approximately an 8-foot-high hedge along the south property line. And we're proposing along the north edge of the swimming pool to install a 5-foot hedge, which would totally screen the pool from the street and also, by the way, from the off-street parking area. So this pool will be virtually invisible from any place other than the property itself. I don't know that I have to say too much more. I think those were the issues that we...
I do have one question.
Sure.
that we were looking at. You have a proposed addition of 303 square feet,
It's already in there, Rob.
but it's all outside of the building envelope,
Where are you referring to?
on the back of the house. Has a covered porch and a proposed addition of 303 square feet.
No, actually, that's a side yard, so that conforms.
The 303 square feet, that,
This is this addition I'm pointing to
it
here?
says principal setbacks, and
Let me see what I'm seeing.
proposed addition, 303 square feet, correct?
Let me see, I'm looking for the 303 square foot number on it.
Move to you, this way toward,
That's this one here?
no, up. Move your finger there. What is see that addition?
Yeah, that needs we requested a variance for that.
I understand that, but it's completely outside the building envelope.
Right.
But if you flipped it 180 degrees to the other side, where you're taking out that wooden deck, it seems like you could put the addition in there and not need hardly any setback relief. But is there a reason why that wasn't explored?
Yeah, there is actually, and I have the architect here to talk about that. It has to do with the existing roof configurations of the house. And I have a drawing here which I'll offer up to address that, and I can have Mr. Lehman talk to you a little bit about that. It also has to do with the layout of the house itself, the floor plan itself, but I'll offer these drawings up. If you want to explain that.
Kirk Lehman, architect. So this is a diagram showing the addition that we're proposing on the east side of the house. And we pushed it as far south as possible to be as conforming as possible. And you will see that the roof comes down. If we were to go any further to the south, it would go beyond the existing roof, and therefore it would be difficult to resolve that roof. So if you can imagine, there's a gable coming into the existing roof, and we slid it as far south as possible, and you can see we're touching the end of the eave line in order to be as far south as possible and still collect that roof. If we go any further, then if you can imagine, the gable would be beyond the existing house and would be sticking out in that area.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about how this lines up with the addition to, maybe from a floor plan perspective, if there's any virtue in doing it this way versus putting it down here?
The other issue is that within the house, there's an existing staircase, and we were working around that existing staircase, and the addition, as proposed.
This document that you're referring to, do we have a copy of that?
Correct, it is A1 submitted in the original package.
Just hold on a second so I can grab that. That's this.
If it's A1, it's A1.
You want to use the larger one?
Why don't we put that?
Sure.
Put that on.
And I'll take your small one.
So the existing, the proposed addition is here, which is in line to the southerlymost portion of the existing two-story part of the house. And because this is 2 stories above, we have to be able to collect this roof. So we pushed it as far south as we could. Also, there's an existing staircase, which on the second floor we go past, but that's as far south as it can be. If we look at the second floor, actually on the revised plan, we even moved this week back further, shifting it this way. But getting past the staircase, that is as tight as it could be.
So you did revise these plans?
The only change was that we, on the second floor, pushed it further south, being more conforming, but it was so minimal that
So
it
that
didn't seem-
reduces relief?
No, because the first floor still needs the setback, but the second floor is a practical, as in terms of mass, it is less of a variance.
Correct.
What the clients are trying to do in this case, too, is they're really trying to work with this house and preserve as much of it and do as much of it as they can to have it match what's already there.
Basically, if you tried to move it back, you would really destroy the architectural integrity of the house?
Correct, because we have the matching ridge height, and we're keeping that in line, and it's a very low ridge height, it's about 22 feet, and they want to keep the small character of the house, so we slid it as far south as we could, and yet contain that roof within the main house that exists.
You have that coupled with the physical design of the staircase, too, so those things all militated towards. We did look at it when you mentioned it.
Anything further from the board or attorney? Anybody from the room like to comment on this application? Anything else we need, Wayne?
I don't see anything. I see that Mr. Flanagan has provided calculations as to the 50% expansion. I assume all these letters reflect the reduction in the size of the pool and the relief that's being sought.
Yeah, the most recent site plan that I submitted yesterday does reflect the reduced lot coverage, et cetera.
Well, we should close it then.
My question's going to be how you're going to square this with some of our prior decisions.
Like which ones?
South Roscoe, South Hill Street.
South Roscoe had 3 front yards. That was the big deal there.
Right, but this is,
This pool's not going in the front yard, it's going behind the house.
right, but it's in the front yard setback.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there isn't a way to square it. I'm just saying, how are we going to square it? South Roscoe is 50 feet back from the front yard. This is, what, how far back are we from the front yard?
Well, South Roscoe is an issue of being in the front yard, not the setback.
Right, we're not in the
This is not the front yard issue, but it's the setback issue.
Exactly.
So
Which to me is
if the
more,
Roscoe doesn't apply.
well, it's more detrimental to the character of the community if you're actually in the front yard setback, to me.
Well, that's the
behind the house,
question.
though.
Maybe you want to ask the
one could argue
applicant
that-
as addressing the neighborhood here.
One
Behind
could
the house,
argue,
behind the parking.
I'm sorry, it's behind the parking, and one could also argue that it's, from an aesthetic standpoint, it's better to have the pool set back further than the house, because visually, that's what people expect. The other thing you should remember when you look at this particular plan, as a practical matter, not as a legal matter, what the setback is from where the street pavement is. So it almost conforms when you look at the, and that shows on the site plan that we submitted. Legally, it's not determinative, but certainly you can see where the edge of the pavement is and where the property line is, so there's additional setback there as a practical matter only. I've always thought that when a pool is clearly not in the definitional front yard, that's a lesser intrusion than it actually if it met the setback. People don't expect a pool to be in front of the house, but they do expect it to be either in line with or behind the house.
Was South Hill in the definitional front yard?
Yes. The difference with South Hill, though, is, as you know, the code has that quirky section that says if you're in a certain zoning district, the zoning district setback requires not the size of the lot setback. Here, you don't have that problem. Your zoning dictates 40 feet. The setback gills, it's still 32.1 that you're proposing?
Yes, it is. So again, on a ratio standpoint, that's not that huge of a variance.
It's a case, but the question goes back to what's the impact on the character of the area. So
Right, so how would you compare this to the South Hill case?
I think the zoning is different, the size of the lot is different, the setback is different. You know, in South Hill, you need a 70-foot setback.
It was 70
Yeah.
in South Hill?
Because it was in an R40 zone, so therefore, that was substantial, given the required setback. I think they were only proposing 20-some feet, correct?
The pool they got was just a plunge pool.
It's not a pool.
It wasn't really a pool. It doesn't fit the definition of a pool.
Yeah,
Well,
in the
agreed,
end,
so we're saying the same thing. Why wouldn't you require a plunge pool here if you required a plunge pool? And I'm not saying that you would, I'm just saying, why wouldn't you? If we have the answer,
I wouldn't
that's
because it's
fine.
behind the house. I think that's an important issue, the fact that it's behind the house, doesn't extend closer to the street than the house does.
And we're saying, if I recollect, South Hill, that the pool was closer than the house to the road? I don't think so.
I think when they first came in, they wanted a full-size pool. We ended up with a plunge pool.
and there, they
And they had
meet
two
the
front yards,
setback.
and this only has
Oh, this has two front
two,
yards.
yes,
There's two
that's
front
true.
yards also.
But if I remember South Hill, it was also further from,
It was a setback question.
it was further from Platt Terrace than the house.
Also, we weren't completely happy with that
Similar to
decision. That
this,
was hammered out
the
between the
setback
two
issue.
attorneys.
Instead of, there, I think it was, they had like a 20-foot setback from the street and required 70.
Right.
Here, this is 32 point something, and required is 30 feet. Substantially a different test as far as the substantiality, but
Required isn't 30.
or they wouldn't need this?
Well, certainly the magnitude of the variance is a lot less than the case.
Or
you're
40
talking
feet,
about.
I'm sorry. 40.
Right, so we're approximately three-quarters conforming, if you look at it that way.
Okay, so it's 32 instead of 40.
Exactly. It's required 40
Did we do
feet.
fractions?
We did.
You
I
know,
think,
different-
yeah, you ought to know.
It's a
You taught
different
me.
amount.
More than 50 years ago, Bill.
That's how I know it was.
That's a big, so that's not really a good case to
What
compare.
year?
1963, I think. it was.
1963, yeah, that's 55 years ago.
I don't know why we're saying yes
Remember
here
that
and
because I was
no
in your
there.
class when Kennedy was
When did that have
assassinated.
to- That was later, right?
You end up saying yes.
No, not 86. Was it 86?
So here, we're not saying 10 by 10 because it's
Could have
only
sworn it
an
was sooner than that.
85?
All right, all right.
Don't lie now.
It's
It was about 19 when I had in.
a significant
No, it
difference.
was a little older than
So
19.
does it mean, are there other pools in the area that have this setback?
Excuse me?
Are there other pools in this area that are similar setbacks?
I'd have to take a look at that, but I think if you look at the totality of this, the fact that we're 75% conforming, that this pool is totally invisible with existing and proposed screening, I just don't. Plus the fact as you can see, part of the pool, another relevant portion of the argument is that a good part of the pool is located where the existing garage is, which is in a non-conforming location, which we're getting rid of and making the garage more conforming. So there's a trade-off.
How much more conforming is this garage than the prior garage?
Now, let's see, that garage set, I could probably, does anybody have a scale? You can see that the existing garage is dotted in red.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Okay, I can tell you. Let's see. Existing garage is 22.2 feet from the street line, and the proposed garage is 27.5 feet from the street line. So
5 feet.
so the garage is 5 feet further back.
There is a house diagonally across from this house that's got 2 front yards, and they have
Yes,
to.
yes, they do. I believe that. I think that shows. I think I submitted a survey at the last.
Does it have a pool across the
Let me
street?
just see. Pull it out.
Diagonally across the street on the corner of Almond and Halsey. Be like the southwest corner.
I don't know. Give me a minute. I can look. But let's see. I got the aerial photograph. I can find it on here. It may take me a minute.
Is that a new pool?
It may take me a minute.
Diagonally, yes, it's a fairly.
Is that the one that we did the house in?
I did submit this. This showed all the pools that are in the area. I think the one across the street. Let me see if I have that. I submitted a lot of this at the original hearing. Let me see if I can find it again. Let's see. I don't want to take your time now unless you want to look for it. I can probably find it. I know I submitted it at the first hearing. I did submit other cases of other variances similar to this, where you had long, narrow corner lots where variances were granted. So this is not out of character with some of the other variances you granted. I can certainly tell you that. And that was all submitted at the initial hearing.
Across the street have the pool. I don't know if it makes a difference to anybody, because maybe what we're saying is that this is a relatively small variance for the pool.
Relatively small variance.
Let's go with that.
Right?
Let's go with that.
Yeah, this is relatively small.
I think
It's,
this is relatively small.
I'm recused from this.
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's
I don't have a problem with this.
32.1 versus 40, so you're talking 7.9 feet. It's say it's 75% conforming, and part of it would be conforming.
Okay. Is there anybody in the room want to comment on this application?
Want to close it for decision, or?
I would suggest if Mr. Flanagan wants to just go back through his files or any other records and submit anything in writing before the work session, that would, please, might help answer any of the questions that were raised, or for any further support of the application. You have the opportunity to do so, but I think you could close it subject to those written submissions by the work session.
I move to close this application, subject to written submissions.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
4-0.
Opposed? Yeah. 3022 Pappas.
Thought we had a decision on this. We might.
The hearing's still open.
No, but we have a decision.
Anticipating that.
Lisa Zaloga, I'm the architect for William and Allison Pappas. You guys, I submitted a letter and new plans, I think on December 6th, prior to the work session. Do you have copies of them, or would you like copies?
I think you should put it down and just describe it, what you've changed since.
So when we were here last, we were talking about the proposed pool house. If you remember, this is a piece of property that has 2 front yards. I was looking for a 16-foot setback where 20 feet is required. There was some conversation, the neighbor was here. We discussed possibly trying to push it a little closer to the swimming pool and maybe shrink it a little bit so that we could get maybe an 18-foot setback, which I was able to do. So I did, in fact, push it so that I'm 10 feet off of the swimming pool, and I shrunk it. So the size of the pool house shrunk down to about 333 square feet, and the area that's non-conforming is 22.6 square feet. If you remember, it's skewed to the property line. So it's really just that hatched area right there is the only portion that is actually even within the 20 feet. But I do need relief to 18 feet. And there was a conversation about making sure that it was noticed that the pool equipment would be in the crawl space underneath the pool house.
And you agreed to dry wells?
Yes, yes.
Bring the pool equipment underneath the pool house.
That's correct.
Yes, and that's now noted on the survey.
Any questions from the board or the attorney?
And she did exactly what we asked, huh?
I think she did. Any questions from the room or comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm the neighbor. Sorry.
Your name is?
Andy Newman. Well, actually, at the last meeting, we didn't discuss an 18-foot setback. We talked about trying to bring it back as far as possible. There's a couple other things that could be done here, and there's some other things that we're discussing.
Excuse me, I thought I asked you, 2 feet back, is that was okay for you? And you said yes.
No, I said I thought we could bring it forward 2 feet, and I also said that we could shrink the dimension from the east side to the west side by some as well, which would make it substantially conforming. It could still be done. There's a couple other things that could be done here. One is at the west side of the pool house, which is the front of the pool house, we could go slab on grade, which wouldn't impact digging and wouldn't impact the pool, which was one of the concerns. And they can also still shrink the dimension of the pool house from between the east side and the west side, which would bring it into substantial compliance. It would be very, very little impact on the setback. One of our other concerns was, given that it was the encroachment in the setback, was the height of the pool house, which was also had been a concern of the board. It's still at 14 feet. Given the grade, and you can see it on the elevations, given the grade, it's more like 16, 17 feet when viewed from our property. So we would still like to see the roof line brought down. On the elevations and the survey that were resubmitted to the board, there's no gutters indicated there, and there is no dry well located on the survey. So we still have concerns about the drainage there. And one of the other things that was discussed at the last meeting was the fact that there were a lot of gaps in the hedgerow. And so while it was noted that there was screening, It's incomplete, and the applicant agreed at the last meeting to fill that in. We would like to see that to be a condition for any variance granted, that additional screening is put in there. Finally, there's another patio that's in the setback. If a variance is to be granted, we'd like to see that patio removed. We didn't have advance access to the previous survey. We saw that on the existing survey, the resubmitted survey. So those are just the 5 things I'd like to bring to the board's attention.
There's a little patio there, but that's at grade. It's not raised up or anything.
No, but
A little patio down in the corner.
a little patio down the corner, but it's completely within the setbacks.
Yeah, I know. Are you talking about they do a slab at the same level that the pool terrace is at?
At the pool terrace, but just for a foot or so. You can bring that forward.
But wouldn't that raise it up higher?
No, it wouldn't raise it up higher. Slab on grade, they can come closer to the pool that way without digging deeper down at that point of the pool, so it wouldn't impact the structure of the pool.
Because the land falls off there quite sharply.
You'd want part of the building built on a slab on grade and part of the building with the basement under
Sure.
it?
It's easily done. Easily done. I have a building that was 150,000 square feet that we rented to a new tenant. They wanted a 30,000 square foot addition onto the building with a basement. We were able to do that fairly easily. And if you dig a basement, if you dig down next to an existing building that's slab on grade, the building would slide into the hole. It was a fairly easily done engineering-wise. This is a much simpler project.
Right, so the part that faces the pool would be on grade with the pool terrace?
Just for a foot. You could bring it forward by a foot. Slab
Where it's applied for now, isn't it down lower, down that?
Ridiculous.
Isn't it down lower,
Which way is forward?
Moving toward the west.
Towards your property?
No, away from my property,
Toward the pool.
toward the pool.
Towards the pool, which is, okay.
Right.
The pool on your plan, 9.6, so you're saying move it, so it would be 7'6" from the pool?
No, just 8'6", or 8'9".
So what does that get you? 8 inches?
That and a reduction in the dimension from the east side to the west side would bring this building substantially into compliance. It would hardly impact the setback at all. It would hardly impact the setback at all.
So your suggestion, she make it complying, in which case this board would no longer have any jurisdiction over anything?
I'm not suggesting that she make it compliant. I'm suggesting it become substantially compliant. The variances are for hardships. This is not really a hardship.
Oh, I understand that, but if she moves it the foot that you're suggesting, it appears to me, but I'll let the architect determine this, but it would appear to me then they wouldn't need a variance any longer.
They would still need a variance, but
For what?
if they move it, well, it'd still be within the setback.
By a foot?
Well, only a small portion of this building, the the northeasterly corner of the building, not the entire building, appears to be within the setback. So I'm not sure if you move it over a foot that any part of the building will remain in the setback.
It would still be in the setback. There's there's almost 2 feet into the setback there on the northeast side. I'm just suggesting it be brought forward a little farther, and the dimension from the east side to the west side be shrunk a little bit, and we'd be good.
What's on your property adjacent to this area?
We have a pool and seating area that would see this pool house from there.
But this pool house would screen you from their pool. It would actually give you more privacy.
Not.
Your pool is, how close is your pool to this property line?
I don't have the dimension of that.
Is it 20 feet?
We were completely within the setback, so it's at least 20 feet.
So it's beyond 20 feet?
It's at least, it's within, it's beyond 20 feet, yes.
So with the scanty privet, this property, the applicant's property, was subject to noise and such from your pool?
Sure.
Over two pools together can affect each other currently.
As far as the screening goes, that's a condition that we apply almost all the time. That's common to us to do that.
Appreciate that. It's very thin back there. The hedges are on their side of the property. If it was on our side of the property, we would have filled it in as we did on the east side of the property.
What would have to be done to the hedge? So there's a hedge there now, but how would they augment it?
One, they'd have to add in additional hedges. It's not been well maintained. There's gaps in there, and then they would have to maintain it.
Would a different variety be better, like something that was evergreen, like a Leland cypress or something that would screen year-round?
I'm not a landscape expert. Arborvitae might be better, but that's not for me to determine. I wouldn't want to tell somebody else what to plant, just that it's well screened.
You could ask for what they want to put.
So Lisa, if you change that screening to, say, a Leland cypress that's year-round evergreen, I don't see all the other issues go away. It makes the pool house invisible from his property.
I see it.
And
I submitted pictures in there. There's a lot of growth in there. The hedge is actually behind other planting. So some of it is a little scraggly because it's not getting sun. So, my husband's the landscaper. So I can have him, go and look and try to maybe when we...
Beef up the screening?
Yeah, but if it's not getting sun, then, the hedges, but you can, in these pictures, you can just see that's his house. That's the chimneys of his house. You can't even see his house.
So how much of that vegetation would remain if this pool house is constructed there?
All of this will remain. It's just at the edge of the pool, and of course we will screen behind that. But there's a very tall hedge behind there also. It'll start to get more sun, obviously, but all of this over here will remain, and all of this, it would just be right behind, right at the pool house there.
So, Mr. Newman, right? Do you have anything further to add at this point? I just want to have
But I'm more than happy
the
to-
architect address what you raised.
Well, nothing further to add. I have photographs as well. I can show you the north side of our property where
Do
the
you have
hedges...
them to submit?
If you would like them. I don't know if I have enough copies, but that's on the north side of our house, and that's a hedge that's well-maintained and fairly full. And
Is that a picture towards where this proposed structure would be?
no, but I have two other photographs that are, and I will submit that these were taken about a month and a half ago, which is not the summer, so it's not going to be as...
just a hedge. I don't even know where it is.
But,
Hedge.
I don't see anything except a hedge.
well, it's fairly bare.
Don't look bare.
That doesn't look bare?
Well, this one,
Looks like
Oh,
November.
that's bare.
that was bad.
No, the first one is on the north side of our property, which that's full. I wanted to show you a comparison. The hedge, on the hedge on one side that's maintained, the hedge on the west side of our property, east side, which is the applicant's hedge.
This one is the east side,
That's the applicant's
Their
hedge.
east side.
Yes, their side,
that's the hedge that faces you.
yes.
What? She could fill in, I guess, the privet quite easily enough.
I'm more than happy to fill
Be
in.
careful what you ask
Opinion,
for. In
baby.
my opinion, Leland cypress is segmenting this village in a way that I don't like.
I'm not asking for Leland cypress.
Well, watch out. You could get Leland cypress and you'll be
I'm asking...
ghettoized.
I'm asking for it to be filled in, to be properly maintained. The other thing we're asking for is for the proper drainage that the board did request last time as well. which was the gutters and the dry well. The dry well didn't appear on the survey, the gutters weren't on the elevations, so we were still concerned about that.
I think we asked that before, didn't we?
But there will, I mean, I don't generally draw gutters on houses, but
You said
there
that you would
definitely be
make,
gutters, yes.
you would
Gutters and
include,
dry wells.
I understand.
in our decision, you would do gutters and
It wasn't in the
drywall.
minutes either, so I just wanted to
Absolutely.
re-raise the issue.
No, of
Now
course.
it's in the minutes.
Now it's in the minutes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Newman, you have anything further to add?
Nothing
Okay.
further to add.
So then, Lisa, Mr. Newman presented 5 issues. One, that the setback is too close, and a suggestion that this be shifted. Do you have any response to those?
Well, the code would require even a house or a building that's a slab on grade, you still need to dig down and have a foundation that's at least, the bottom of the footing has to be at least 3 feet below grade. So you're still excavating, and you're still going to overcut and get close to the pool, whether it's going down 3 feet or whether it's going down 5 feet. So that's code.
May I respond to that?
Well, let's just
Okay.
let her have a chance here.
Sure.
But I understood my question was, the suggestion was that you move the building closer to the pool?
I think what the neighbor is suggesting is that I move the building closer and cantilever it over the foundation, if you will, and just have a little piece of slab underneath the outer foot of it so that I'm not over excavating closer to the pool. But code would require me to have a foundation underneath my building, underneath the wall, and the bottom of the footing has to be 3 feet below grade. That's frost, that's code for New York.
So the question, though, is,
If I get
assuming you got to
closer-
do it the way you need to do it per
Correct.
code, can you do that and still shift the building?
I mean,
What's the consequence of that?
I'm already at 9.5 feet. Like I said, when they build, they overdig. That is his only patio. The walkway is around the, he has patio on the other side and patio here, the walkway on either side. I'm at 22 square feet that's non-conforming. That's less than a sheet of plywood, 4 by 5. It's just that little corner. Moving it forward, that corner is still,
I'm okay if you do the gutters and a dry well and do the landscaping, the rest of the application is fine by me.
Yeah, you're saying the nonconformity is how many square feet?
22.6 square feet.
22.6 feet.
And it's really that
It's just
northeasterly
that corner.
corner. That's what my point was, is that if you did shift this over, would it actually become conforming and you wouldn't need a variance, and none of these other added conditions would be able to be imposed?
You wouldn't have to do the privet.
Wouldn't have to do the privet, wouldn't have to do anything.
So in a way, it's advantageous for this board to have some jurisdiction and grant some relief with conditions.
If we bring down the height of the roof, I would agree with you.
I did shrink the depth of the building, so the roof came down, 3 inches, just by virtue, so it's 13'9".
It's still from our property, it's still
Accessory
substantially
structure
higher.
code is 16 feet, so you're well below, she's well below
And-
code now.
And if you look, I drew the pyramid lines on there. I'm way far away from any form of pyramid issues.
And if you lower the roof this much further, I don't think it's just not going to have that much impact, it's just roof. What is the
Correct, and
material of
it's
this
a
roof?
completely hipped roof, so you're really
what's the
talking about just a
material of the
little
roof?
piece of ridge.
Wood shingle?
Wood shingle.
And you're
It's gonna
talking
be
about the
gray.
ridge being 13'9". The
Right.
part that's non-conforming is far less
Correct.
than that, right?
Correct. The plate height is only about 10 feet. I used to have it on there somewhere. Yes.
But anyway, you had 5 points, so they only let you get to 1.
Well, I think you addressed the hedge, you addressed the dry wells, you talked about the height, you talked about moving the building. What about the slate patio? What's it used for?
Nothing, and I'm happy for it to go away. That makes everybody happy.
It sounds like a dry well, hedge, landscaping, and removal of the slate patio. The question is whether the board or the applicant want to address anything to do with the height or moving the structure further.
I'm fine where it is.
And I think your point's well taken. I mean,
I'm fine with it too.
Fine.
you have those
I'd rather have the
conditions.
dry wells, landscaping maintained.
Anybody have
And get rid of the
any
patio.
further comments?
Anybody from the room like to comment? Any more comments from the board, sir?
Well, I can see where you're going, so I have no further comments.
You want to close this one for
Thank you very
decision?
much.
For decision next meeting.
We can close it for
I move the
decision
Pappas case be closed for decision.
I'll second.
with addendum to come, yes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was 3022.
You agreed last time. Remember you?
Did you get a new chair, Wayne? You got a new chair too, right?
Normally it squeaks and everything else.
And I'm afraid to lean back.
New cases, 3025 Captain's Neck.
Come on, Tom.
For the applicant, John Bennett and Reed.
3025.
So, this is a application to permit an accessory structure, a greenhouse, to be situated on a piece of property where there is no principal residence. The adjacent property, the property to the west, is a waterfront piece, and that's where where all the improvements are. The waterfront property and the property that we have in front of you, the street front property, are both, they're in separate, they're owned by separate entities, but they're controlled by the same family. What our suggestion is to allow us to have this greenhouse, which elevations have been submitted, in what is sort of de facto the front yard of these two lots, although for obvious reasons the lots are kept separately because this is a very valuable lot, but we wouldn't want to merge them. But even then, we'd be front yard relief. So it's a concept that we are in the village of Southampton, as Dr. Corman would be quick to tell me when I made an analogy to the town of Southampton. She'd always say, "That's why we're in the village, John." And I know that. Excuse me?
It still applies.
It still applies. But I think what might be helpful to look at, hopefully, or what I'd like you folks to consider, I have it here somewhere, and this is essentially what we're trying to do. The town of Southampton has a code section, and I think really the sort of helpful thing about this is that it delays development, because the only other option is to actually construct a single-family residence on this parcel. So we don't want to do that. The applicant doesn't want to do that. But they would like the board's sufferance to have a greenhouse there. So it's interesting what this town code section says. It was adopted not too long ago. I might note the town zoning board of appeals was giving these variances out with a fair amount of frequency. So the town adopted this section, probably a little bit to the consternation of the local bar, because these applications sort of became what we call as layups. So they put it in the code, so you didn't have to get a variance for them anymore. But here it is, where a property owner owns two or more contiguous conforming residential properties in common ownership, at least one of which is improved, and then we say common ownership, they then go to define common ownership as being common beneficial ownership as
So if
well.
they're in the same name, they would join.
Well, in the same name, they would join if they were non-conforming.
And if they want more,
Yeah, exactly. But here, they've been, the owners have been very careful to keep them in different record ownership, and that's what the code talks about, different record ownership. You could have, when people checkerboard a subdivision, they'll be the beneficial owners of all the lots, but they'll have corporation A, B, C, D. So that's what's going on here. So,
Basically, what you're asking us to do is to allow an accessory structure on a piece of property that does not have a principal.
yes, with the
I can
understanding.
only recall one time when we ever did that. And a tennis court in the corner of Halsey Neck,
Yes, there's a huge wetlands issue, that's right, yeah.
and we sterilized the property.
Sterilize the
Couldn't
property?
build on it.
Absolutely.
In the tennis
It's
court.
on the north.
You want to sterilize this property?
Hell no.
Oh, well, you're breaking new ground, John.
Well, no, not really, I don't think so. Let me give a shot at this. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. That was because you sterilized property because you said, okay, you're
they
not
own
going to
the
have
house
a building
across the
there with
street.
no septic system, and
Across the
therefore it's
street from
across the
the main
street
house.
from the owner. Exactly.
I wanted a tennis court across the street.
Well, let me tell you why I think from a policy point of view this makes good sense. Really what you're doing is delaying development. You have someone who has a house here and they're satisfied with that, but they're fortunate enough to be able to control the lot in front of them. The only other option is for them to build a single-family residence on this house, on this lot, I should say. Excuse me?
don't make me do it.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like a don't, it's sort of like a don't make me do it. Honestly, they don't want to do that. But I think there's
No
some,
room for the greenhouse on their property, on the main property?
I suppose there probably is, yeah, you could probably put a greenhouse somewhere, but this is all landscaped, and this is essentially a vacant property. They wanted to have the greenhouse there.
Enjoy the property in front.
Enjoy the property in front. It's just sitting there. That's exactly right. Is there a damage to this? Is there harm to this? I don't see how there's any. The test is not, contrary to what the gentleman said before you, the test is not a hardship. The test
No,
is.
there's no hardship anymore.
Yeah, the test is the benefit, the primary test is there going to be an impact on the character of the neighborhood? That's of all, there's a 5-part test, but the heaviest lift on all of it is there's going to be impact on the character of the neighborhood. Look what was here before, if I may, and I had to laugh, what relief you got. I had to sort of laugh because the last time I was here, Mr. Guzwood said, because there were 2 cases where I was coming back in and trying to rearrange something that you guys had already granted, and you said, can't you get it right the first time? So this sort of thing. I put in the application a variance that you guys granted back in, it was about 11 years ago. And it was, the lots were then like this. There were 2 waterfront lots. They ran from Captain's Neck to Hetty Creek. And then the owner, somebody bought these properties and came back in. I think Gil, after I got the subdivision approved, Gil came back in for a lot line modification and created this scenario, the lots in this configuration. But the lots used to run. There were 2 lots from Captain's Neck to Hetty Creek. Back in 2006. You granted relief. It was kind of you to do that, but I think it was not something out of the ordinary. You granted relief for not 1, but 2 tennis courts to be in the front yard. Here, it was, I'm trying to find you the, pardon me, it was the...
Waterside development?
Yeah, thank you, Waterside Development. This is submitted as part of the application. I'm just fumbling, looking for it, because I thought I had it before I came up here. It's actually in the application. So...
It's attached.
It's attached. So what would have happened?
Yeah, I think we treated that like it was oceanfront, where you would have...
Yeah, waterfront, exactly. But there were 2 tennis courts that were going to be generally in this area. So I think when you have someone who's fortunate enough to be able to control both of the lots and doesn't want to further develop this lot, and could have had a situation where you had 2 waterfront lots, each with 2 tennis courts right here, and all they want is a greenhouse of less than 800 square foot. I don't think there's anyone here to complain, but we'll find that out. I didn't see any opposition in the neighborhood or in the village file. I just
Jim's going to complain.
Sorry. Frankly, I don't see any. I don't see the harm, and really what you're doing is you're forestalling development. And yes, don't make me do it. You're right. That's very. But I don't think they want to go there. Their hope would be that you would see that this is not a big issue. We would be willing to covenant that so long as these properties were controlled by the same family, that's how long it could stay there. If there came a time when this property was to be if there came a time when this property was to be sold separately, then I think we'd parrot the language of this town section. Within 6 months after the sale, and you could note this on the CO, we could put it in a covenant, within 6 months after the sale, someone would either have to put a single-family residence in a conforming location on this lot, for which there's plenty of room, or remove the greenhouse. So visually, it's not going to look like anything strange or unusual.
I have a question for someone, well, you and Wayne, is does this open the door for, this is a greenhouse and somebody else has a similar situation and they want a garage, and somebody else comes along and they say, well, look, you let them have a greenhouse, I want a garage. And so now we have a plethora of different types of structures on accessory buildings on properties where our code says you're not supposed to have any accessory structures on a empty
Separate
piece of
parcel, yeah.
property. So that's,
So,
Are
two
we-
things. One, I'm very familiar and actually may have had something to do with the town's amendment on this and the policy behind it. And I think that what Mr. Bennett has indicated is there is some value in the policy that is here. Clearly, Mr. Bennett's client can come in and build a house and put any accessory structure it wants, whether it's tennis court, pool, or greenhouse, or whatnot. However, they're in the same ownership, and he could merge the lots and still put the structure there too. That's a solution as well. He could just at some point just merge the two lots, and
well,
then
I mean,
it's
they need a
conforming.
variance for an accessory structure in the front yard if it was all one lot, so.
Right. So the question here is, if you follow what the town is doing, and one thing you haven't done, John, is just demonstrate there's existence of sufficient buildable area in the event that it's a single-family dwelling. I think, given the size of the lot, I think we can all see that.
I think you can see that, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
However,
it's an 80-foot front yard, and
it's a unique situation. You're granting a variance in this instance. The town allows the building department to do this up front, and that's the only difference. And it's because the town was, as Mr. Bennett indicated, considering this situation, and it all goes to the ownership. And so long as they're maintained, if the lot is ever sold, then they either remove the accessory structure or build the single-family dwelling to make it a principal. So that has been.
Well, there's one other, if a family member wants to build on a lot without selling it, they would have to remove it also.
Right.
Right.
So if a son,
Oh,
daughter.
that's not
niece,
selling
nephew-
it, but.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Any other.
I mean, as soon as you build the dwelling on that
Right.
separate lot, it becomes conforming.
I mean, it sounds, like but it's a step that we very seldom have taken before, so I'm trying to look at it from different perspectives.
Well, you know what, on if I may, I'm always foolish to interrupt a board member, I'm sorry, I'll just, go ahead. Sorry. Should I speak, or?
No, please do.
There is a fair amount of this that goes on in the village as a result of planning board action. The former Eisenhower property, which was before that one of the brothers, the two brothers, they were both lived together. I'm trying to remember what their name was, on Halsey Neck Lane, and Eisenhower's old property. And before that, it was when there was the two brothers lived together. I'm just trying to, I forget their names. Anyway, it's a big Coaden, it is. Coaden was subdivided. You're looking at 3 lots there at Coaden, and it's
10 acres.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the main house is on in the middle, and on either side of that There are, primarily on the north side, there are a lot of accessory structures that don't respect the property lines at all. And there was a subdivision approved, and on these lots, they were conforming lots, and those lots have a covenant on there that say you can maintain these accessory structures in a non-conforming location so long as the lots are controlled together. So that's essentially what happens in that case. Then there was a two-lot subdivision on the corner of on Little Plains Road. On Little Plains Road, the northwest corner, you guys were kind enough, I came in, there were two-acre parcels that had merged. We were able to demonstrate that everything in the neighborhood, in the entire block, 60 parcels, there was not one conforming parcel. So you let us recreate those two-acre lots. The pool for one of those lots was by itself, and the planning board made us file a covenant. So you can leave the pool there, but as soon as those two lots come out of common ownership, you have to take it away. So you actually do have, by way of planning board action, quite a few situations where you have lots that are 2 or 3 lots on a single subdivision map,
Yeah, but they were leaving buildings that already were there.
That's right.
Here, have a building that's not there.
That's true, but really, what's the difference?
The difference is that one is there and one is not.
Okay.
It's a big difference.
From the code perspective, there's no difference.
From a
Because
code
you're
perspective,
allowing an accessory structure to be on a parcel of land, a separate parcel of land, without a principal structure.
I don't think it's
Dan's
such a-
question was, where does it stop?
That's right.
Well, but you know what?
think the
Why not
unique
a tennis court?
situation,
Why
though-
not a pool? Why not?
I would say to you, Mark, I would actually, to be honest with you, I would say to you, why not a tennis court? But having said, no, seriously, because that's what the town often does. But you have the control. This is not a tennis court. This is an 800 square foot greenhouse. You know, without a section like the town has, someone has to come to you each time and say minimal impact on the neighborhood. It's 500 feet or something from the road. Not going to be able to see it.
They're going to use it year-round?
Relative thing, right? I don't know what year-round is out here. No, you know what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't want to make that
It's a
representation.
greenhouse for purpose of growing plants.
Yeah.
Right, so you're going to keep it, so it's going to need power, lights.
Yeah.
But it's
When if this goes through, it's going to be hard for us to turn down the next one, even if certain things are not the same.
If it's a greenhouse.
I would never allow, I don't think a
underlying
pool is a good
policy
idea, just because it's so far away from the house. And it's a safety issue.
Policy,
The garage, the same way. You know, you're going to have noise.
why wouldn't you do it if the
Well, a
underlying
pool,
policy?
like a pool house, isn't a pool, like a pool house has to be within 20 feet of the
Another
pool.
single-family
And for
home.
safety issue, exactly. You wouldn't want to have a
I
pool
just
out
wanted to
there.
make sure
I
there
understand. That's why
wasn't
the town wrote.
something, we were opening a door to something in the future that they would use this as something we wouldn't want.
So we have the man here who do it.
Every time I come into you guys and try to show you where you've done something in a similar way on a piece of property, you always say to me, every property is different.
But what if this man wanted a 3-car garage there,
No.
accessory building to park?
I would just say no. Why don't you just limit it to use? I don't think a pool would fly there either. And I think that, you know, why don't you limit it to lots of this size, not half-acre lots?
Well, that's the other thing. These are mammoth.
So, I mean, you think then that it's all right to approve this, and if another one came up where they wanted a swimming pool or a 3-car garage for his hobby cars or whatever?
I would say a swimming pool, no,
that would come
because it's too
The
far
garage
away from
would
the
come
house and it's a safety issue. I would say no to a garage because if there are noise implications. You're growing plants, you know?
I know, is it response to liberating laws that are coming down the road? Cannabis, I'm talking about.
Oh, cannabis,
All of a sudden,
There will be no hydroponic, there will be no hydroponic, you can put a condition on it, there'll be no hydroponic growth of,
So far on the surface, I like,
only for personal use.
it's legal.
Have to go by it, but
Can we look at the plans for it? Did we have some questions in the work
It's a
session?
beautiful,
That it was really, that was
no,
really,
that was a different one. That was
different?
different. That was the one that we wanted a basement with a generator that was,
sorry.
that wasn't
This is a
one.
true greenhouse.
yeah, it's a true greenhouse.
This is a true greenhouse.
I mean, you can draw something up where you can limit the scope of anything going forward. You know, but it's benign, and if they separate, the thing's got to come down.
Or you have to build a house on it.
And it ensures that lot will be cared for. I mean, if there's nothing on
Right,
it,
they're gonna
you
be
can let it
going
all
in.
grow up,
Right,
I guess.
So the use, we
Yeah.
would say this is a passive use, right?
yeah.
It's not an active use like a pool
Well, that's the
or
other
a
thing.
garage.
It's much more benign even than a garage or I mean, I see your point, Mark, where does it stop? And I see your point, Dan, where does it stop?
Yeah, I'm just
But,
looking at
No, I
the,
got it, I
Well, how
understand.
many lots we have like
yeah, like
this?
that-
Hundreds of lots, scores of lots. Like,
And if somebody came in and they had the lot this side and they wanted a greenhouse, do you really care?
I don't care.
No, I don't care either, because
but what if they came in and there were 2 half-acre lots and they wanted to do something?
that's what I'm saying. You can limit to the scope of the size of the property. I mean, if you can do that, I don't know if you can do that.
Well, what you would
these
look at, though,
smaller
is the
greenhouse.
functionality is, first of all, again, the buildability of that accessory structure on that vacant lot and the ability to put a principal structure on that. Where would you put the principal structure? Is it located? The other thing you're taking into account here is what's on the current lot. So, for example, this one has a swimming pool on it. You're not going to put another swimming pool on the property, but you could build a tennis court there. And so what you're doing is just, and they would, the question is, would a house that gets built there likely to have a tennis court? Would they, if they didn't have a garage, you might be okay putting a garage on the adjoining property. So I think each case is taken on its own merits, and the difference between what the town does, now you don't need a variance. You don't get to take into account perhaps the location and the character of the area that goes to each use.
Yeah, I
So
think-
one way that you have more control over what the town was doing. But the underlying policy is sort of the same. The only question here, John, that I don't see any evidence, you've got to give us the deeds or the title
No, yeah,
to show
we
us
could
what
make it
the
that a
ownership is.
condition, yeah. I will represent to you that they are in separate ownership, but the entities are beneficially controlled, and I can give you the proof of that. So the entities are beneficially controlled by the same.
And you're willing to put a covenant on the property?
Yep. I think actually, it's interesting that you say that. I think you probably, in a lot of ways, want to keep it within your control, because the town is just a broad-based, so you could do a tennis court, a pool house and everything. I think you probably do want to look at this on a case-by-case basis. My argument would be that this is so benign.
Well, you have to draw it up as such.
Yeah, no, you'd have to draw the variance up that way.
Right.
And, but I just, it's 200, oh, I'm sorry, I said 500, that's my mistake. It's 245 feet from the road, which is almost a football field. I just don't think, and one of the things you always look at is anyone going to be harmed by this? And I just don't see it.
I think they're going to use the property. I think it's a good thing.
And consider that on that other lot, they could landscape the heck out of it and put all kinds of trees and whatnot and everything. So what's wrong with a little greenhouse?
They're going to put,
A wee greenhouse.
A wee greenhouse.
A wee.
and they'll have electric and water running to it?
I assume they will, yeah. I don't know, but let's
With no
assume.
bathroom or anything?
I assume they will, but let's assume, I don't know if they will, but let's assume they will, because I just don't want to make,
But no bathroom? or-
there's no bathroom shown.
You're going to have power,
You're going to have power, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They have to have water, power, heat.
Yeah.
Water basin, yeah, there's
What
a
kind of
water
heat are you going to put
basin.
in there? You're going to put in a buried tank?
Water basin, I don't know. Oh, heat, oh, I don't know. Water basin, drainage gully, bricks, it looks fairly simple, but there's going to be water and power there.
But if there's heat, that's divine heat, that's, then there's a,
I don't know, do you have, I think greenhouses, sometimes you provide for electric.
well, they'd probably
heat,
put a
no?
propane tank and probably do a propane heater.
You're going to need power.
Yeah.
Water, power, you're going to have to have electric.
Yeah, I think those old greenhouses that I used to see on the big old estate places, they were usually white with all the glass. I think I remember seeing in there once in a while, you'd see a heater in there for certain times of the year.
If they light this thing up at night, is it going to bother anybody?
I don't think so.
It wouldn't light it up at night or disturb the plants.
They have to sleep?
Well, plants have to sleep at night.
Okay.
Maybe a little music they could have.
Sometimes they have, sometimes they're a little,
Yeah, happy plants.
Talking about that again? Okay, that's a sign.
you guys better be careful, it's not legal yet.
Can I ask you on a side?
Yes.
What is a registered domestic couple?
Registered, that's in the town
Yeah,
law?
yeah.
I'm not going to go there.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Where do you register?
I didn't write the code.
Where does one register?
I think there is a provision for that. Oh, no, it doesn't matter anymore, because you can get married regardless of
Gender and all,
about
yeah, but
chromosome count now.
you still gotta register. And then unregister when they leave, and then new one comes in, you gotta re-register.
What do you need? I gave you that.
I didn't think I'd be quizzed on that, Mr. DeVenny.
So where are we with this?
I think he has to frame it in such a way where you're not going to get a tennis court, you're not going to get a pool, you're not going to, the size of the lot matters.
Covenant has
I
to be
think,
made up.
the age-old thing that we attorneys, and I use that broadly, always like to say, and the word is precedent, but of course the courts and this board will always say there is no precedent. However, the law is that if you treat someone differently than a prior decision under the same facts and circumstances, you have to really show and distinguish why you're doing that. So in this instance, we can put language to make it clear that one isn't going to waive this decision at you in the future and be an automatic
Yeah, that was my
reason for
concern.
you to do that.
Ricky used to do this all the time.
I think if somebody came in and had a 3-acre parcel, a 5-acre parcel,
There you go.
and wanted an 800-square-foot greenhouse, 245 feet away on one side and 71 feet away on the other side, you'd
You're gonna
probably have
give it
a
to
hard
them.
time saying no to them.
Somebody's JB.
I admit. Although actually, that's a line of cases that's line, what is it? It's the field. It's a field something services cases, and somebody tried to use that in the village of East Hampton, and your former counsel, Rick DePetris, was defending the village of East Hampton, and he wrote in the decision, that may be the case, but we've changed our policy, and the appellate division bought it. Knight versus Amelkin. This is the Court of Appeals case. Says you have to treat everybody similarly, but it's very exacting what similar
case,
means. You know, and then, as I say, there's a second department case where Rick put in the East Hampton ZBA's decision, well, that may be the case, but we changed our policy, and sure enough, the appellate division bought it. So you can always change your policy.
Throw a lawyer into the mix, right? See what happens.
Key is that you articulate why you're acting differently.
I agree.
And I think the point is that you can always go back to your decision and say, wait a minute, we said this is, a unique situation, so you have to come up with other standards as to why we would want to do it differently on a different case.
You want to put something in there subject to zoning changes. For some reason, they changed the setbacks, and it no longer conforms in any way, shape, or form, that they have to get rid of it. Is that a little onerous?
I think it would be pre-existing.
Also anticipating something that I don't think will ever happen.
You also, do you remember the time that I came in and talked to you about the Golub decision and said you really have to give somebody else the same relief? And you guys very boldly said, we made a mistake. About that, too.
The pagoda.
The pagoda. So it's, yes, that
one of the
Knight
first
versus
ones on the
Amelkin
Bay
case.
side.
That Knight versus Amelkin case is, lawyers sort of get excited about it, but it's been really, it's in its progeny, winnowed down quite a bit, so.
So it sounds like you're asking John for a little guidance on that in the form of a letter and/or other information, and I'd like to see the title information.
Sure. I'll have to get them. I did not, I represented this when it was sold, but I didn't represent it when they, let me see.
Does he do the
So
covenant, or do you do the covenant?
I was going to say you should also provide us with a draft of the covenant that you're proposing,
Very good.
so that we can look at that as well.
Okay.
And I would, unless the board has any other questions, I would say if you can get that to us by the work session, we could probably close the hearing unless there's somebody, Jim, wants to comment.
Close it then?
Do we have a motion to close the decision pending addenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jan split.
So patient.
Yeah, you don't yell anymore.
27.
I'm getting old.
27 one.
Not done yet. Don't worry.
I saved that for you.
Back here, so much.
Save that for you.
He's saving it up. Okay.
Talk fast, John.
I will, I know.
3027, please.
3027? Is that you, sir? Jim Lane?
56? Yes. Okay, this used to be owned by, this is
Greenhouse.
Burton Browse and then Belfer. And so this is a proposed greenhouse also,
See?
but it's on one lot. So it doesn't create any of the issues that we were struggling with before. The two requests for relief. There's a little cottage there that when you walk by, Gin Lane says Rose Cottage, right here. I used to tell my kids that there was a big, I used to tell my kids that there was a large human-sized rabbit that lived in this cottage. And until they were about 6 or 7, they believed me. Because it sort of looks that way, doesn't it? In the back, there are stairs that go down to the cellar. They just want to enclose them. It's about 46, what do we have? It's 36 square feet of enclosed space. I think under the village code, it would be gross floor area because it's exterior wall to exterior wall, but I don't even, under the state building code, I don't even think this is habitable space. It's merely to enclose.
Just a covering for the stairs?
Just to enclose a set of stairs. That's it. So I
Does the
think
basement exist?
Yes. This has been there for some time. You've seen
Cellar?
it for a long, long time. Yeah, and typically, if it was a new accessory structure, you couldn't have a basement. Could not have a basement, but this is been here for a long time. Look at that non-existent setback. Yeah, I think this is, it may not be on the 1917 Belcher Hyde, but it's on the, I saw it on the, what's the one from the 20s? The insurance maps that they use.
John, has this board ever considered any prior decisions, any expansions before of the house?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I could find that out for you. Certainly not at this cottage. I don't think you would have, it's not a non-conforming house, though.
Well, the property's non-conforming because of two dwellings.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess, yeah,
Stairs
that's
going
true.
down.
That's the relief you're asking for, right? Expansion and non-conforming.
Yeah, that's true.
Near there.
It's about 36 square
you
feet.
have
I
the
guess the
cellar
question
under
is
it,
whether or not it's even an expansion.
Generator in it.
36 square feet.
Well, no, it's interesting. Here's my pitch on that. It says, if the code section says usable floor area, it doesn't say GFA. Right? And this is, I'm enclosing a stairs. So for example, there was a lot
So I
of things.
assume you weren't successful in convincing the building
I
inspectors.
didn't even think about it. I didn't
That's
think
why you're here.
And to be honest with you, I'll be very honest with you, I didn't think about it until right now. But for example, there are things that in the village that would be GFA but are not habitable space, like a stairwell, for example, or closets and stuff like that. But I figured the better course is just to ask for it, because it is 36 square feet of just enclosure of a stairs to the basement, and a pre-existing house a little cottage. It's technically a single-family residence that has a basement in it.
Tell us about the greenhouse.
The greenhouse is it's a waterfront lot. So you folks have been fairly reasonable about accessory structures in a front yard of a waterfront lot that conforms, the proposal conforms to the accessory setback, which here would be 90 feet, and it's 204 feet is proposed. It's about as plain Jane as you can get.
The other thing is it looks more like a garage with big windows than it does a greenhouse. It's got a wooden roof, it's got a roof with a cupola and a,
Well, we could covenant that it's going to be nothing but a greenhouse. I don't have a problem with that. I don't want you to have to worry about that.
John, one of the things, your last application clearly shows the roof is glass, and it's all about the sun coming in the structure. So I also wonder why there's a opaque roof. The other thing is you're proposing a basement on the accessory structure, so that has to be eliminated.
Well, maybe we can take that out.
and then is it basically a cellar? And
I think there's
There's a
it shows
generator
a
in
cellar
there.
with a generator in it.
generator in there, but you know what we could do? We could make it such that it was, well, let me ask you something. Let's see, what's
It's
the
less
height?
than 8
What's the
feet. If
height?
it's 7 feet, that would
Sorry,
comply, correct?
I need my glasses. It's 6, what does it say? No, it says, is it 810? I can't, 810 or 610? I have a magnet missing, hold on. Sometimes you can do it this way. I'm not using my cell phone, I'm just, other than as a magnifier, sorry.
Yeah, doing Facebook or something.
Let me see what that dimension is.
I think they're saying 610 be under the
610,
7 foot.
610, so it's not technically a
okay.
basement, yeah. I think it's just for the generator and some other stuff in there, so yeah, no. 610, not a basement.
That's legal.
Excuse me?
That's
Yeah.
legit.
But there is a lot of light there, it's just, I think it's just it's
You have very
it's-
high windows there,
It's a design choice, that's all.
on more than one side, too.
Yeah.
high windows.
What kind of plants are you going to grow in there?
Legal plants. Certainly legal under state law.
But why the roof?
I think the roof is probably just a choice, just as a design choice, and
I think it's structural, too. In other words, for that style, a rectangular greenhouse, it's,
Is there going to be any other activity that takes place in this other than growing plants?
not to my knowledge.
Covenant that, right?
Yeah, we can do that, of course.
It's not going to be an entertainment area.
No, I would hope that on a 19,000 square foot house, where they control this lot that has
the teenage kids want a rock
2,500
band to play out there, so they're far away and the noise doesn't bother them, so
Except
but
they
it
have-
bothers everybody else in the neighborhood.
Except they own, the owners of this lot control this lot where
Oh,
there's
the land? Okay.
I'd say almost 3,000 square foot single-family residence, which pretty much sits right up in the dune. So that's probably where the kids will go, and I guess. Again, this is essentially functions as a, as a compound. They were not able, sadly, to acquire this piece, which has that beautiful old carriage house on it. But they do have what used to be it was before it was Browse, it was Belfer. It was Browse and then it was Belfer. And now the new owners, they do own this adjacent lot with a single family residence on it. So if I was, I'm sort of scratching my head because if I was in here for a tennis court on a waterfront lot, you'd be like,
That's right.
yes. That's all I have.
Make a nice tennis pavilion someday. They got an osprey feeding pond for koi.
I told them that they have to put monofilament over the koi pond because it will remain nameless, but the gentleman lives down at the end of Halsey Neck, had some $10,000 koi.
This is the accessory building where they're going to have that. Okay, that's where they have that.
Put it in the koi pond and had it there for a day.
A day.
Talking about this,
That's where
and
they're
watched the
closing
Oscar
theirs.
come down.
I have a friend that has a koi pond, and where he had a problem is you feed the koi pond, you give them food.
Yeah.
So every time you disturb the water, the fish come up.
Right.
Well, a raccoon came in the yard, and the raccoon figured out if you wiggle the water, the fish would come right to him.
They're smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they ate all his koi.
Koi. I thought, he said he was sitting there on the back porch with his wife saying this wonderful koi, spent all his money for. So, because I asked him why he had monofilament over the koi pond. That's what,
Pelican.
yeah. Anyway. That's my Christmas story.
Yeah, where are we, gentlemen? Anybody have anything to say? No.
Concern is that no habitable space, no sanitary sleeping or cooking.
No bathroom, no.
Well, there might be sanitary because there's probably washout stuff in there. It's a greenhouse.
You can have a sink in there.
Water again.
Yeah, there's going to be water in there.
Bathroom.
So you will say that, no bathroom?
No bathroom, no kitchen.
No kitchen. I don't think there's a problem with. I don't know if there's any
No sleeping, no cooking.
I don't know if there's any. I don't know if there's any plan for it, but bathrooms in a garage. I've had toilets in a garage or something like that. Somebody's in there and
Toilet, no shower.
that's fine.
garage.
Then the next thing, once you have a bathroom in there, it's a bed and you've got a guest house.
Okay.
room.
Whatever, however you guys want to condition it.
Yeah, but the kids are down there, remember? They're drinking
Someone's an exhibition.
school ribbons, they're gonna need a toilet.
Unless they go outside.
However you guys want to condition. I don't see any plans for it, but certainly there'd be a washout sink in there for
Yeah, you have to wash your hands. You have to work with the
I'd say
plant.
have a
That's a
toilet.
greenhouse, that's what, you know.
I want to toilet too.
What if you get absorbed in your plants and after a while you have to go to the bathroom?
You can pee in the sink.
It could be in the sink.
Oh, it's
Reclaim the
not.
water.
Actually, it's not.
What about women peeing in the sink?
That's a different story.
Oh, God.
So we need a commode.
I don't see the problem with
You're not calling for a bathroom in there
It's
anyway,
fine.
correct?
Excuse me?
You're not calling for a bathroom in there
I'm
anyway.
not, but I don't know that there's the prohibition is, necessary. It's
We allowed it in the garage, remember, just no shower.
yeah. You can put a I know you can condition this on whatever you want, but you can put a bathroom, you can put a toilet in a garage.
The thing is, if you do, then you got to put a septic system in for it, so that's,
I think I'm going to have to put a septic system in it for even for a wash, even for
for the
great.
greenhouse?
Yeah. For if I have a sink.
so you're going to have to go to the Board of Health?
Yeah.
IA system? It's in a,
We'll see that. We'll see.
Just
it's
a
in
dry
the
well.
priority area.
We'll see.
Just a dry.
Maybe it's just a dry. We'll see. I wouldn't want to prevent it though. I haven't spoken to the client, but I wouldn't want to prevent it that with a toilet. I think maybe if you're washing vegetables or flowers, I'd have to look at it. You may be able to get away with just a dry well. I'm not sure. I know I was very surprised one time when I was representing someone with a horse farm, and in the washout stall, they wanted a septic system, the washout stall for the horses.
Yeah.
I said, really? And the guys was like, that's a.
There's a tendency for some people when they're washing vegetables or washing anything at the sink that they pretty soon feel the need to micturate.
Potty training a kid, right?
Go to the bathroom, take a pee.
What was the word for you?
I use micturate.
Okay, you're running into Jim's time now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was having so much fun. I'm sorry. I didn't want to. Sorry, Jimmy.
Are we closing this, or what are we doing with it?
It's up to you.
You want to close it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Close for decision?
Pending anything?
Unless you have any other questions.
No.
I move we close this application with decision.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 3028. Call the applicant.
I'm here because Mr. Voorhees told me to submit application to amend a prior decision that you made And I already have received the New York State DEC permit modification. Basically, this is 90 Meadowmere Place, James and Maureen Callanan. And the reason why we're here is they have completed the first year of common reed management. And the Japanese knotweed that's in the area closest to the lawn is very resistant to selective cutting. So I told Mrs. Callanan that I would return to the village and get approval for digging it out with a shovel, putting it in a wheelbarrow, and disposing of it. It will work quicker, and it will allow the wetlands restoration to be more complete. And your board should be pretty aware of this property. I know Dan is. This has already been approved by New York State DEC, and I ran the whole application by Mr. Voorhees before I made the modification request. You have everything that you need. I don't really have any changes in the plans or the design narrative that I think are important for the board to understand. We're going to hand remove the roots. Japanese knotweed is a little bit harder than common reed to manage. Common reed you can manage by selective cutting. Works pretty good, worked very well on the next door neighbor's property. But Japanese knotweed, for instance, over on the Mortimer property across the pond, we removed it with a shovel and a wheelbarrow, and it worked very well. These are things that you learn by experience, and on this particular property would help Mrs. Callanan succeed at her project. That's it. No greenhouses, no bathrooms.
No tennis courts.
Tim, did you have an opportunity to receive a copy of Chick's report?
No.
Here's a copy, maybe you could just take a quick look at that. He was just asking for some additional information.
Usually Chick sends these things via email, so I'm looking at them for the first time. Erosion control measures are not needed in this particular instance. We called out for a root barrier on the south property line to prevent Phragmites from coming back across the property when it was removed at the Callanan property, which is in place, and that's fine. Updated planting plan, we're not going to plant this back. The plans have been revised to show the difference in the management method. However, the only thing that we're doing is removing the non-native plant material, and we're allowing passive restoration of the area. And if the board is interested, I'll hand these up. This is the native plants coming back. This is the area with the Japanese knotweed that keeps coming back. It's just like if you have Japanese knotweed in your lawn. You need to dig it up and get rid of it. Most people would simply put rodeo or Roundup there. But in a wetlands area, what we do is we hand dig it. We remove it, and the hibiscus and the goldenrod and the flat-leaved goldenrod, the Joe Pye weed, all those plant materials come back on their own, just like on the neighbor's property. We don't plant. We don't need to plant. I lost his.
Was there a planting plan, a condition of the permit in 2017?
This is the plan, man.
Okay. And what did it say to do in that area?
Selective cutting.
But there was no replanting or plan showing what, or anything like that? I'm just trying to go based on what Chick was saying, that he wants to see an updated planting plan.
There was not a requirement for a planting plan or plant back, excuse me. Moreover, what the state required was that we leave the stuff that is in existence there without working around them. So, for instance, the northern bayberry or the other shrubs that are there, we simply leave them there. We work around them without killing them, and that's the type of restoration that was approved the first time.
So did you submit a copy of the DEC permit to us?
No, I just got it, Wayne. I can submit a copy of the DEC permit modification, the changed plan, and the changed design narrative, but there really is no reason to provide additional silt control here. We're not going to cause silt control. What we're going to do is we're going to put a shovel in the ground, tip up the rhizome, pull it out, put it in a wheelbarrow, and let the stuff grow back. Works like a charm. It is exactly what happened over at Mortimer. And Mortimer's property is spectacularly successful.
What time of the year you do this?
What's that?
When do you do this? What time of year?
What time do we dig it?
Yeah.
It's good if we dig it January or February. If the ground is not too frozen. If it's past January or February, we do it as quickly as we can in the spring before things start to grow. It's easy to do. It's not
So
rocket
it's,
science.
you want to do it in the winter, John?
I'm going to do it during dormant season.
Yeah.
My suggestion is that Jim, you reach out to Chick and clarify this for him, and so that, and you get whatever, a copy of the DEC permit or whatever other information you said that you were going to provide, and that would give him the basis for us to give us a report and recommendation for the issuance of the permit at our next meeting.
I think Wayne's idea is excellent. We'll give you a design narrative, copy of the DEC permit, and I will address each one of Chick's.
I suggest you give him a call or contact him, and maybe your clarification can minimize what you need to provide.
My experience with Chick is to email him the information, which I'll do it right away so that you would be able to, in advance of your next work session, have the information in front of you.
It's the 15th of next work.
So should we close for a decision pending addenda and report from Mr. Voorhees?
I don't think you gave Mr. Bennett an opportunity to be heard.
Yeah.
Did you want to be heard?
So I would recommend that you close it, subject to those submissions. And,
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
This terminates the zoning board meeting of December 20th, 2018.